Well, I'm getting ready for my big outing of the day. I'm gonna go get the mail. What a time to be alive. You know, we're all coming to terms with some things right now. Like concerts canceled, sports postponed, WrestleMania without any fans. I'm coming to terms with a couple of things myself, like A, Carol Baskin definitely killed her husband, and B, Jean Claude is definitely going to be my number one actor on my 2020 letterbox, because I'm doing this whole Van Dammocalypse. Yes, I am 5 films deep now here on this Van Dammocalypse, and I still haven't changed that logo, and I probably won't, because I'll probably only go like 7 deep on this. I gotta move on to some other movies, like we say in the elementary school, I gotta save some Jean Claude for the fishes. But tonight, we're gonna celebrate China, because I want to piss off all the racists that have come out with this. Or at least I'm gonna celebrate the greatest thing China has ever given us, the Godfather of Gun-Fu himself, John Boy Woo, who's got a hard target on Van Damme the Man. Around the time that he was being paraded around from festival to festival as the wonder boy of indie film for making El Mariachi for $7,000, director Robert Rodriguez took part in a panel with some other 90s brats, and they were posed the question, would you direct the next Lethal Weapon? Now, the only one of them that said yes, they would, was Rodriguez, but he also said American action films would continue to be more influenced by what was going on in Asian action cinema. Enter John Boy Woo, as he had done Hard Boiled and The Killer. Hollywood studios were sending him all sorts of kung fu scripts trying to bring him over. He came across Hard Target. Now, he wanted Kurt Russell for the lead, but he was busy doing Tombstone. So Jean Claude himself got together with the writer of the script and the producer of the film. They flew over to Woo. So we open up, nighttime somewhere in the Big Easy, and Dennis Quaid isn't anywhere to be found, but we got Lance Henriksen, Bishop himself from Aliens, exploitation legend, and he's got his number one henchman, Prince Imhotep himself, Arnold Vosloo, from The Mummy, the real Mummy, suck it Tom Cruise. They're playing some kind of Most Dangerous Game, if you're familiar with either the story or the Ice-T movie, and they're making coin off of these rich scumbags who are paying them to allow them to hunt down these homeless vets. Enter 90s Michelle Monaghan, who has found out that her dad is not only homeless, but he's missing. Now, Yancey Butler is the actress, and she was quite the looker before the crack cocaine, but then again, aren't we all? And she makes her way into a diner, and there he is, Jean Claude himself, except this time, he's Jean Claude Van Mullet. Suck it, Billy Ray Cyrus. So on his way out of the diner, he looks into a windowed reflection and sees not only 90s Michelle Monaghan, but her tail. And no, I don't mean her backside. I mean she's got some bad hombres who are chasing her down. They follow her out, and in the middle of the street, they attempt what is some sort of rape and robbery. But Van Mullet, he ain't gonna stand for that, so he comes out and he just roundhouse kicks the crap out of these guys. And we're talking now, we got roundhouse kicks in slow motion because copyright John Woo. He sends one guy through what appears to be quadruple paned glass because of the slow motion. Then he breaks this other guy's arm as a chaser. He walks away in glorious slow motion, giving 90s Michelle Monaghan plenty of time to perv. And we find out that Van Mullet really just wants to be a sailor. He's got some sort of 90s long-haired Jack Kerouac thing going on, but unfortunately, he owes a couple $100 in Blockbuster late fees. Enter 90s Michelle Monaghan, who's looking for someone to help her. It's a match made not in heaven, but in slow motion, as Van Mullet reveals his answer. He's behind some shipping containers that move in slow-mo. 90s Michelle Monaghan takes off her sunglasses. She's got plenty of time to perv on Van Mullet. In fact, I should mention that John Woo likes to film his movies with 4 cameras. And on this one, Van Damme requested that one of them always be on his biceps or his chest or some other sexy shot. They come across her father's belongings, including his wide array of phone sex ads. He was paid to hand these out to people who were bored of talking with Chad from State Farm. Enter Chad from State Farm. We got this fat boy scumbag who works for this phone sex company, and Van Mullet is going to intimidate him with a slow motion lighting of a match. But then Prince Imhotep himself shows up, and him and Van Damme the Man are staring at each other in slow motion. The homoerotic sexual tension can be cut with the splits. Now, Van Mullet knows that they're getting in deep with some pretty bad crowds here, and he says, we gotta start working smarter, not harder, which coincidentally has been my lovemaking mantra for years. Meanwhile, Prince Imhotep and Henriksen, they go and visit Fatboy himself and Van Gogh is here. Now, Henriksen is really good at a few things in this movie. He's really good at playing piano, doing villain monologues, and getting rich scumbags to pay him to hunt down homeless vets, because let's face it, sports are canceled, what else are you going to do? But this time, the homeless vet on the run, he gets a little lucky. They're going to play some Mardi Gras in the graveyard, and he's able to actually kill the guy who was hunting him down. But once he escapes into the city, Prince Imhotep catches up with him, and he treats him to a special screening of The Mummy Returns. You know, Vosloo is one of those dudes that his nationality is really hard to pinpoint, which works for him great. Here he's playing kind of a Russian Billy Zane. Anyhow, Van Mullet decides to take on a new career as a neck masseuse as he interrogates the Fat Boy. Now, this whole scene leads to Fat Boy getting gunned down in a glorious waterfall of windshield glass as Prince Imhotep takes him out. Now, it's interesting, just a few moments earlier, Henriksen is going on about how they need to keep a lower profile and they need to go to a new place where they can keep it quiet. Meanwhile, they're making mincemeat of the entire town, and this leads to a glorious, high-speed, high-stakes motorcycle chase worthy of our celluloid savior, James Cameron. This motorcycle chase leads to a point where Van Mullet is standing on top of his motorcycle going 45 miles an hour. He's starting to fire his Beretta at this van. He jumps and does a somersault over the van, stops, spins, turns around, fires his Beretta to finish him off. Holy crap. This moment alone certifies this film with the FDA as a erectile dysfunction medication. Now, Bishop himself is pissed. He's bringing in the all-star team of rich scumbags to hunt down Van Damme. Van Mullet, he's preparing in his own way. He's using 90s Michelle Monaghan as bait to bring in this giant rattlesnake who he just donkey punches and then bites off his rattler. He's going to leave it as a little surprise for the all-star scumbags. Now, they make their way over to a farm, and then, holy crap, kids, it's actual Wilford Brimley. Yes, Mr. Diabetes himself is there. He's Van Damme's uncle. He's rocking some kind of Cajun accent that makes him sound like Tony Montana's incompetent great uncle or something. Leave it to Brimley, of all people, to be the guy who shows up in a Van Damme movie with an accent more incomprehensible than Van Damme's. Of course, we here at Hawk Schlock love Brimley. He was in John Carpenter's The Thing. He was in Chucky Bronson's 10 to Midnight, a sleaze masterpiece. And of course, he was in an episode of the greatest TV series ever produced, Walker, Texas Ranger. Now, Van Mullet is riding a horse now. The only thing he hasn't ridden yet in this movie is 90s Michelle Monaghan, and that's only because that scene got cut out. At one point, there was this big brouhaha with the studio executives. Now, Sam Raimi, you'll notice, is an executive producer on this movie. Now, he was yelling at everybody in this meeting saying, hey, let John Woo make his John Woo movie. Now, Woo only found out later on that the real reason Raimi was hired by the studio was to shadow him and step in and take over if need be. Raimi instead used his position to protect Woo. Anyhow, the scumbag all-star team, they show up, and actual Wilford Brimley is there. He's rocking a crossbow like Robin Hood, Prince of Diabetes. I just watched a movie where actual Wilford Brimley is riding a horse, holding a bow and arrow, as a giant explosion goes on behind him, all in slow motion. Now, Prince Imhotep is back. He's leading a helicopter charge on Van Mullet, who's on his horse, and they're firing those exploding bullets that you might have seen in that Bat Crap Crazy Netflix documentary, and we're all leading up to our finale. At this point, Henriksen is wearing a coat fully engulfed in flames. He's casually taking it off while he's reciting this villain monologue. Van Damme the man, he's incognito like the bird lady from Home Alone 2, but quicker than you can say, Kevin! He's descending from the rafters like an angel of death on a giant pelican, all in glorious slow motion. We got more reflections, more guns, more birds, all in slow-mo. And like so many restaurants these days, Van Damme also delivers curbside as he kicks up a gas can and makes a huge explosion with his shotgun. And Arnold Vosloo, I'm afraid to say he's not going to be in The Mummy 3 because Van Damme the man just unloaded an entire clip into him. And what about Henriksen? Well, he's been killed by a Predator, a Terminator, an Alien, and now Van Mullet himself, somersaulting slow-mo through some flames with a roundhouse kick to end all roundhouse kicks, and a grenade in the pants as a chaser. An actual Wilford Brimley, don't you worry, he's saved by his flask because, of course he is. Cue the credence. Oh, it's Schlosker time, and we got Best Mullet of the 90s for Van Damme the Man, Best Supporting Actor with an Incomprehensible Accent for actual Wilford Brimley, best reason to get a doorbell installed for that scene where the police autopsy doctor, he gets an eye exam via the mummy himself in the peephole. Once again, we got Best Excuse to get a free Mexican food dinner from one of those windshield replacement companies for that moment where Fat Boy getting himself shotgunned in his car. Best reason to be alive in 2020 by watching Van Damme the Man stand on a motorcycle going at 45 miles an hour, firing a Beretta and somersaulting over a van. It's, John Woo who I love, it's Jean Claude who I love, a supporting cast I love. So on my Schlock Cinema scale of Winona Ryder's face is a walking emoji generator. It's easy for me to go all the way with this one. 5 Winonas. You can catch it on DVD, you can catch it streaming a couple places. Like I said, the Blu-ray, it is the slightly extended international cut. So what are you doing listening to me? Pick this up, check it out, thank me later.
Schlock.